G'day ladies and gents, and welcome back to War Thunder. Today, I have two battles to show you today. One of them goes pretty pear-shaped, and the other one goes kind of well. So, we are here in this beautiful plane, the CL-13B. And it really is beautiful. It's a great plane. I sort of put off doing a video on this plane at all for quite a while. In fact, it's been out for a whole patch, and I just haven't bothered. I think it might even be 2 patches. The reason being is because of the Axis versus Axis matchmaker. The CL-13B is one of those sabres that are built for that fast and heavy type of play. They have a better engine, but they have a little bit less maneuverability, and they're overall a little bit heavier. And so what I want to do in this kind of plane is play it fast. Now, a lot of other planes at that tier also play fast, T2. For example, MiG-19S, F-40 Sabre, and this Sabre sort of gets left in the dust when you look at it compared to other Sabres. Sabre versus Sabre, although it wouldn't probably be that bad, the F-40 still, I think, reigns supreme. However, when you put this thing against MiGs, and indeed the Shenyang F-5, I think this plane is actually quite competent. It has, a little bit of a bonus there, and it also has the air-to-air missiles, which make it reasonably competent as well. As you can see, I've done a little rush strat, and then I've pitched up and then gone for a little turn so that I can engage this MiG-17AS, who I've caught pretty much unawares. He's going to dive down to the deck, and looks like he's going to come up for me again. So I'm going to put my energy retention to good use. Now, this plane is fast and heavy, but it does have some of the best energy retention of any Sabre. It doesn't quite have the turn rate, but it does have that energy retention. So if you do have something like a MiG-17 that you're pursuing, whilst you can't always outturn it, you can sort of hammerhead like I've done there, and then put your dive speed and your energy retention to work, and it works quite well most of the time. You can see he's getting desperate, he's popping air brakes. I'm not going to pop air brakes to follow him because I don't want to lose speed, and turns out there's a Shenyang F-5 right behind me. The F-5 is probably one of the more dangerous targets, and I would think that it goes quite well as an opponent to the CL-13B. The CL-13B arguably has better missiles, and it also has a better roll rate. It has pretty good energy retention if you're not considering the afterburners, but the F-5 tends to have the top speed, but it compresses, it doesn't do quite as well, and it has difficult guns to get used to. I think the CL-13B and the MiG-17F or the Shenyang F-5, they complement each other well, and I think they should both be the same battle rating, which they eventually will be as soon as the battle rating updates go live. So, the MiG-17AS crashes, leaving me and this MiG-15 here with an F-5 to deal with, and the F-5 looks like he's going to camp his base. That's fine. What I'm going to do is dive on him, but not for long because there's an F-2 behind me, and he could have very well killed me. The F-2 outturns me, but it doesn't quite have the energy retention, and so what I'm going to do is let him overblow, and it looks like that he's just going to go and see if he can build up some speed against me. That's fine. I have an AIM-9B, send one on the way, and I get a nice, quick, easy kill. Probably wasn't expecting it, and that's why I got the kill there. Otherwise, that would have been a little bit difficult. The CL-13B does get AIM-9s, and whilst it only gets AIM-9Bs, I still think the AIM-9Bs are some of the more competent of the early missiles. I would put them above the R3s and the PL2s, just because they're that much better. And you can see here, I'm using that energy retention again to take out a Shenyang F-5, putting myself into the vertical, and then putting myself into a slight dive to get a little bit of airspeed. The CL-13 plays that hard and fast roll, which you don't really play in the F2 at this tier. You sort of play the, lighter type of fighter. Kind of the way you play a MiG-15 BIS, but, a little bit faster, a little bit better roll, less compression. The CL-13B, however, you have to sort of play that hard and fast with this tier, or with this matchmaking. We're currently in an 8.7 to 9.3 by the looks of it. Perhaps 8.3, but it doesn't really make that much of a difference. Now, the reason why I strafed this A5 is not because I want the assist, even though I think it's pretty dumb to have that as an assist, but I don't like zombie sabers at all, and you'll see that I actually do become a zombie saber as such, which is the when you lose your wing in a saber, you tend to still be able to keep afloat somehow by some magic, which is a total load of horseshit, to be honest. It really, really should not be doing that at all. Any jet that takes any significant amount of damage that isn't 99% thrust and like 1% lift should just fall out of the sky if you lose a wing. There should be no question about it. Yet here we are with sabers that lose a wing and still keep flying. I really don't think it should be happening. It's just total stupidity. But regardless, I'm here in a 2v3 now, because it was a 2v4, against 3 planes. An F5, a MiG-15 BIS, and an F-86K. Now, I will be able to outturn the F-86K because I am lighter, but the F-86K accelerates better than me. The F5 accelerates better than me, and to some extent can outpace me. The MiG-15 BIS can out-accelerate me at low speeds, and I am at a fairly low speed, so I'm pretty much doomed here. There's not a whole lot I can do. The MiG-15 is it's gone down, and you can see what I'm doing here is putting myself into some defensive flying maneuvers. It looks like I'm just sort of wiggling my wings and doing nothing, but you can see that I'm trying to keep my wings at a 90 degree to the MiG-15 BIS's wings. That means that he'll have to use a little bit extra rudder, and the rudder, whilst it's good on the MiG-15 BIS, will never compensate for, simple bank and yank. It just doesn't make any comparison. You can see here now I'm at low speed, and low speed in the CL-13 is where you absolutely fail. I'm basically caught out by the Shenyang F5 and Shenyang Gang Gang. I get absolutely roasted. And, props to the Shenyang pilot. That's basically how it goes. Anyway, on to the next match. And we're on Korea. It's about the same time of day, which is kind of annoying, to be honest. I really, really like just the plain old day matches. I despise night matches, but we are up-tiered. And so, believe it or not, this is the match that I do well in. Yes, this plane actually does fairly well in up-tiers, because it can keep its energy on the deck, and since it doesn't have an afterburner, can't really do so at altitude. However, altitude fights are often few and far between at top tier, especially if you're looking at the main dogfight. The main sort of clusterfuck will tend to locate itself below 4,000 meters, and that gives you a decent advantage. Not only that, but you also tend to get the highest just airspeed in total. You tend to, your IAS tends to be the highest at these altitudes, and so why wouldn't you make the most of that? For me, I use IAS because that is basically where I can judge what speed that I turn the best at, what speed I'm going to rip. It's more centered on the plane itself and less on the altitude around it, and so that's what I decide to use. I understand people who use true airspeed, and that's basically if you want to play at high altitude and want to play fast. But for me, if I want to play energy and I want to play turning, ideally I'd like to have both, but it doesn't give me a good enough indication using TAS, so I'm going to stick with indicated. Anyway, what I've done here is I've done a little bit of a flank. I haven't done any climbing, despite everyone saying you should climb in jets. I don't believe in that for 1 second. I think you should side rush. You should do a little flank, wait for them and come up behind them, because coming up behind them is probably your best bet, especially when you have sidewinders that have a rear aspect lock. And you can see that I've caught this Sabre off guard. I've caught another Sabre off guard. I prep a missile, but realize that he's actually flying towards me, and he's flying at super low speed, and I'm able to crit him as well. So there's two planes that I've either taken out of the match or severely damaged. There's an F-Sabre that's starting to get into clusterfuck, and I'm just sort of sitting on the outskirts, absolutely punishing these guys that are trying to think or that think they have the advantage. I've gotten myself a huge advantage by just being the one on the outside and being fast. That's one of the ways that the CL-13B, and in fact most Sabres, when they have something to be gained out of their high speed, that's exactly what you should be doing. You should be playing your advantage, which is your speed and your roll rate, as well as your low altitude energy retention, and that's exactly what I've managed to do here. Look at your advantages as a jet pilot. Make sure that you are not playing when you are disadvantaged. You need to have as much advantage as possible. You can see that most of the planes on my team are at low altitude, and what I've managed to do is sort of sit around the outskirts or sit in the dead center where I have the most amount of teammates with me. It just works this way. And the enemy team, they have MiG-19s. Sure, they're fast. Sure, they're good at high altitudes. But in this case, I would probably bugger off to high altitude in an afterburning jet. This is probably where I would go to altitude, because this is where they would have the biggest advantage against something like a Hunter, which is pursuing, and myself in the CL-13B. Speaking of the CL-13B and its, compatriot, the F-40 Sabre, the F-40 Sabre is probably one of your most dangerous opponents because it can practically outturn you, and it has similar energy retention to you. It has wing slats, so it has, that nice low altitude or low speed performance. And it's just one of those planes that will tend to give you a hard time. How do you fight it? You use your teammates. There's not a whole lot else. It is basically a CL-13, but slightly better. As for the MiG-19s, and as for any supersonics, you have those air-to-air missiles to deal with them. They're not amazing, but what you can do is you can prep them before you overshoot or before they overshoot, and then clean them up as they, get within close range. The AIM-9Bs, they activate quite quickly, and they sort of, get to their combat G tolerance, and they start maneuvering towards their target quite quickly. I've found that the PL2s, at least on the Shenyang, really don't do that, and the AIM-9Bs are a welcome change, and I really, really love it. But for the most part, I think this CL-13 is good fun, and it's been sorely overlooked as one of the jets that just sort of fell away. Perfect counter to the Shenyang F5 in my opinion, because it just does a couple of things better. But anyway, ladies and gents, thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you next time.